So my name is Tony Tran. I'm a director here in the program and analyst and reporting section in the Office of the Chief Data Officer. I'm also joined with other panelists at DIR, including Ann Texter. She is your VSR admin. She's going to be helping out with reviewing the questions and once we get into the Q&A section. But glad everybody is here. So a couple basics about the system. We are planning on launching a new vendor sales reporting portal starting on October 1st. That will impact your contracts as you're reporting it. So right now you're reporting it in the current VSR system. You're going to continue to report in that system until October 1st. October 1st is going to be referring to your September sales. So if you have a contract and it's active and you have a report to submit, you will be logging in starting October 1st in this new portal. So we're going to go through a lot of topics of how do you register for the system? How do you use it? What does the template look like? What are all the new features that we've developed? But yeah, this is something that we've been working on for the better part of a year. We definitely have a lot of our positives and feedbacks of the old system. So hopefully we've designed it so that it makes your job a lot easier. Those on the call, I'm expecting vendor contract managers, vendor sales report contacts, those that will be fairly active in this new system. So I will also caveat, tomorrow we are planning on sending out an email with a lot of registration information. So let's get into it. So on the right-hand side here, you're going to see the DIR portal. You should be familiar with it. It's at dir.texas.gov. In order to register for the new system, if you haven't already registered, it's technically live right now, but most of our vendors aren't really aware of it because we haven't done too much in production just yet. But we are asking that all of our vendors, especially those that are on the call or those that have a contract with DIR, to register in the new Appian system. We are not bringing over any of our old data. That data does exist in other systems, but in order to register for the new Appian system, we will ask that you register. Tomorrow on 8/15, we will be sending an email to all the vendor contract managers. It will have very specific instructions in terms of what we need you to enter, specifically your DUNS number or your Dun & Bradstreet number. That is one of the key fields that we will be using in order for you to see your contracts in the new system. So how do you get to that? If you go to our website, this should feel familiar. If you click on this sign-in button up here on the right-hand side, you'll see the applications portal page. If you scroll down, you'll see some tiles. Right now, you probably know the vendor sales report portal. This will be updated to the new link whenever we go over to the new system starting on October 1st. But this Tech4TX procurement portal link, if you click on that, it's going to take you to our Appian homepage. So the entire application is called Tech4TX. So I'm going to make that reference quite a bit in this webinar. But you'll notice here you have two buttons. You have a register button and a login button. The register button is to register as a vendor, not necessarily to register for your account. If a vendor already exists in the system, you're going to get flagged, or you're going to get a message basically saying, hey, this vendor already exists. But for those on the call, I'm expecting a lot of y'all to not be in the system. So when you're on this page, you can click on register. And I'm going to put in some dummy information. I'm not going to actually submit a vendor registration, but I want y'all to get an idea of what we're expecting. So if your company has not yet registered, this is what you're going to see. You're going to be asked to give your vendor's information in terms of your legal name, your UEI, which is a unique entity identifier coming out of the SAM.gov system. If you don't have it, it's not necessarily required. Any of these that have an asterisk is a required field during registration. Your FEIN or your federal EIN, that is the ID that the feds have given you for your company. That is required at the time of registration. So in the registration email, we're not giving you your FEIN. We are giving you your DUNS number because that is required when you got your contract. But that FEIN, you will have to have that on hand and ready to go when you are ready to register for the system. So for now, I'm just going to put in dummy account. I'm going to put in an FEIN that is just a dummy. Again, DUNS number, I believe it is also 9 digits, but I'm going to put in something 97, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this section here, primary contact. So the person that you put in here, or person or inbox that you put in as your primary contact, they will become the default admin for your company. So in this system, we are giving our vendors a lot more freedom to maintain, create, remove, whatever, users within your company to do work within the Appian system. The Appian system is not only meant for the e-procurement system, which is where you're going to be responding to opportunities or procurements that we're putting out there so that you can get contracts. But it is also where you're going to be going in to do the vendor sales reporting portal. We have plans in the future to release different iterations of applications within DIR through the Appian system, hopefully. So this will become more of a central hub for most of the activities that you're doing as a vendor. So primary contact, that is a person that will become the default admin for your company, of which any administrator in your company can not only create other people, they can remove people, they can also maintain company information. So for this, again, I'm just going to put in a dummy account. And the email, you can, whatever this email is, that is where the temporary credentials will go. So make sure that you get this right. So I'm just going to put in an email address. You can put in a mobile phone number or an office number. Once you're done with this screen, you can hit next. This screen is the business information screen. You can put in all the other information associated to your company. You can always add this in later, but again, this is probably a good thing to start off with in your registration. So if you have business AKAs, aliases, any of that stuff, you can put that in here. For hub eligibility, if your vendor is considered hub, you can choose one of the hub types. So if you're not familiar, hub stands for historically underutilized business. If your company is owned by a historically underutilized business, you can make that designation here. Otherwise, you can either leave it blank or click on not applicable. Your company's web address and any of the street addresses that's associated to your company, you can add that here as well. And again, administrators can modify this information in the future. So I'm gonna click on next. Technically, there is a validation that happens based on the DUNS number that you enter. Because I put in a dummy DUNS number, it did not connect very well to the Duns and Bradstreet system. But you'll see that you'll have an opportunity to look at what the Duns and Bradstreet system has and whether or not it lines up with the information that you provided on that screen. That's kind of why that Duns and Bradstreet number is really important. As you're entering it in, it's going to pull in that information, and you can make those updates if you prefer to use the information out of that system. So I'm just going to click on this use provided vendor information so that everything looks good to go. And when I click on register, I'm going to get a confirmation screen basically saying my company is registered. I should get an email at that email address that I listed as a primary contact. And again, those will have temporary credentials, and that person will be designated as the admin for their company. But because I'm in the actual website, I'm not actually registered. But this again is what we're asking all of our vendors on that's currently using the VSR system or already has a contract with DIR to register in the system. Again, if somebody in your company has already registered, you will be getting a message basically saying that company has already been registered. So you're going to have to contact that person, and they can set up your accounts as needed. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and click on cancel. And what you'll notice here on this next tab is what a vendor would see when you log in with your account. So this is the vendor management screen. It has your homepage. It has opportunities or those procurements that's going to be released. in the new system. Again, I'm in a test system and I'm in a test environment. So it will be, you know, you're going to see a lot of test data in the system for now. Okay. If you go down to profile, this is where you're going to be able to manage your company. And you'll notice that I have these edit signs all over the place. These are things that you can edit after the fact. You'll have limited edit functions in order to make changes. So if I click on that, you'll see that like certain information I'm not able to edit, but I can go back in and edit address information.
Tony, we had a question pertaining to this. They wanted to know if they can have more than one admin.
Yes. So yeah, we're gonna get into that of how you create your users, but yes, absolutely. This system is not limited in terms of how many users are associated to your company. So you'll see that in just a bit. But this screen is really just showing you basic the vendor information that is that you had set up at the time of registration. And again, this is something that admins should be able to go in and make changes as needed. But what you'll notice, and again, I'm going to pick on Canon USA because you are our test guinea pig, but as you log in, you'll go down to the profile screen, and if you click on users, you'll see all the people that's associated to your company. Again, there's no real limitations here, at least as far as I know, but you can have many users associated to your company. It is important to know that if you have like technically two different companies that's doing work with DIR, and they're distinct because they have different FEINs or they have different DUNS numbers, you will have to have two different accounts, and then you'll have to have two different sets of or multiple sets of user accounts, because those are at the vendor level. So you're not able to create one account and log in and see multiple vendors if those vendors are all distinct. So that's kind of important to make a note of. If your company structure is such that you have multiple contracts under multiple vendors, you're going to have to keep those separated. But you'll notice here that I have a lot of accounts. And as administrators, you'll have this button here that says create user. You can click on that and you can add in dummy account information, again, to set up anybody within your company. So today, you're very likely going through your contract manager and you're asking them to set up accounts to access the VSR system. This is 100% something that you as a vendor will be able to do. You will not have to ping your contract manager for at least setting up people to access the Appian system. You can do it yourself. So I'm just going to create a new profile. And the email address here is, again, whatever I put in is where this dummy email will go to with your temporary credentials. You can choose between two types of users. You have administrators and you have points of contact. Administrators, again, can make other users. You can remove other users, or you can make edits to those. You can either add or remove users at your company level. Points of contact are essentially those that are going to be assigned to do work within the Appian system, whether that is responding to an opportunity, providing files in your opportunity, or doing any of the work in the vendor sales reporting portal, which is the focus of today's webinar. So we're going to get into it. I will show you how you will associate people once you've created them, but you have to create them at the company level. So I'm going to create this new profile. I'm going to choose point of contact, and I'm going to click on create. And you'll notice at the bottom of the screen here, that person that I just created is now there. And that person will get an email at this email address with their username and their temporary password, of which they can go back in, log in, set their new password, and they should have access to the system. Again, it's important to note that the system is not turned on yet. So even if you register starting tomorrow, as we send out our emails for your registration information, you will not have access to the vendor sales reporting portal, but you will be able to go in here, create your people, make sure that everybody's set up, and just be prepared for the next 2 months as we send out more and more information about how we're going to be launching the system and how it impacts y'all. but this webinar is kind of our first step. But you'll see that you have multiple people that you will be able to see at your company level. You can deactivate people here as well. So any of these buttons you see on the side here, if you have somebody that's within your company that's no longer there, you can click on that deactivate button and you'll get this confirmation screen of like, do you really want to deactivate them? I'm going to go ahead and click on deactivate, and you'll notice that that person is no longer there. So again, at the company level, you guys will be able to maintain your own users. Okay. Okay. So we've talked about most of the stuff in the slide. We've talked about who your primary contact is. Again, once you're in, you can create other administrators. So regardless of who you put in at the time of registration, that's really the first person to get into your company to start doing that the creation of other accounts. But there is no limit. There's no limit of like 5 people that can only access the VSR portal. You can add as many people here as you want. Okay. Okay, let's talk about assigning those users to contracts in the VSR portal. So at this point, we've only talked about the vendor management portal. So in order to get over to the VSR portal, if you are in the vendor management portal, and you'll know it because this is what your left-hand nav will look like, very likely you'll be on this home screen. If you click on this waffle icon, this is how you'll jump across platforms that you have access to. Again, vendor sales reporting is not available to you, and I'm in a test environment. But if you click on vendor sales reporting, it's going to send you over to the next site. And this is what our vendor sales reporting portal will look like. You'll have this on the left-hand nav, home, contracts, VSR messages, reports. And we're going to get into all of that. But what I wanted to show you is how to take those people that you just created and associate it to your contracts. So again, I'm still logged in as Canon USA. If I click on this contracts tab, you'll see the contracts that I'm assigned to are the ones that are available to this company that very likely has a VSR that needs to be submitted. And you'll notice that you have two, in this test environment, I have 2 contracts, of which on the right-hand side here, you'll see your DIR contract manager that's assigned to your contract, but you'll also see all the people that's assigned to your contract. And you can assign people as either the vendor contract manager, or you can assign them as a vendor sales contact. Those roles are more or less the same, but you know, we wanted to keep those buckets logically separated. And depending on the types of notifications, I believe the vendor contract manager will get certain types of notifications, and the vendor sales contacts will get different ones. And we have plans for it in the future as well. But you'll notice that you have these people here, and you can, if you're on this contracts tab, you have an eyeball view of, you know, who is at least assigned to your contract. But if you click on that contract link, you'll see this button up here that says update related users. If I click on that, you can see all the people that is at your vendor level, right? Your company level that I just showed you on the vendor management screen. So if you click on that person that you had just created, let's say this new profile that I just created, you'll have these 2 buttons up here that either you can add them in as a manager, or you can add them in as a contact. As soon as you add them in as either the manager or the contact, they should be able to go into the vendor sales reporting portal. They should be able to see those contracts, and they should be able to report against it. But until this is done, you wouldn't be able to really report against these contracts. I believe administrators can report against any contracts, so you might not need to do that. But this is a good rule of thumb to say, okay, these people are assigned under these contracts. Especially if you have multiple contracts, it's good to kind of visually see who you have assigned. But you see that I've created that person on the vendor management side. I added them in as a contact. Or actually, no, I haven't. So I'm going to click on contact, and that person is now there. And if you're managing your contract, you can remove people. You can say, okay, this profile here is no longer working for my company. If I remove them, they're no longer there. I click on the close button, and you'll see that the screen refreshes, and the people that I just created is now listed as a vendor sales contact on this contract. Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to the contracts tab so you can see, but you can see how you can have multiple people listed under each of your contracts as either the vendor CM or the vendor sales report contact. Administrators within your company can do that as much as you want. So you do not have to ping DIR, you don't have to ping your contract manager necessarily to do that, but you have full control over this ability. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm gonna advance the slide and let's talk about the UI. And I do promise we will have a break around 10:30 for about 15 minutes. But we have a few more topics to go through before we get to our first break of the morning. So the UI, if you notice, if I go back to the home screen, first we'll talk about the left-hand nav. You have a home screen that has your dashboard. It'll have a banner up here. If we push out a banner that says, hey, the system's going to be down, or anything that we want to make a notification to all of our users, you will see that as a banner up here. You'll also see very high level information about your company. So you'll see this should be your name. You can also make changes to your name over here. If you go over to the bottom left-hand corner, if you click on profile, you can change your name here as well or make edits to your profile. But then that will display up here. Again, your company name is here. You're going to have high-level information of what is your reporting month and what is the due date. So the system, depending on the month that we're in, will tell you what the reporting month is. So today is August 14th. It's looking at July 2025 as the month of reporting sales. And again, this is a test environment. This is not necessarily what you're responsible for. But once we go over in October, right? So when you log in October 1st, you're going to see the current reporting month is going to be September of 2025. And that current month reporting due date would very likely be October 15th, depending on whether or not the 15th is on a weekend or a holiday, but very likely it's going to be October 15th. But every time you log in, you'll see very quickly, okay, I know what reporting month I'm in. I know when the due date is. I can get to work, right? Scrolling down, you're going to get like some high level information of the activities on your contracts. You're also going to get notifications in the system. So if we're sending out any of these high level notifications, you will see them in this panel down below. Okay. So that is your home screen dashboard. We talked about the contracts tab a little bit, but essentially this is where you're going to do the majority of your work. You'll have access to all the contracts in your company. You'll notice that up here you have, again, your vendor name, the reporting period, the reporting due date. So we want to make sure that you understand what the context of what you're reporting, right? And if you have one or multiple contracts, you'll see them here. If you have surviving contracts, they will also show up here. So you will have a lot of information. This VSR submission status is really just telling you what is the status of that particular contract. And again, I'm in a test environment, so we have some test data out there. But for the most part, when you log in October 1st, you're going to see a VSR submission status of not yet submitted. That just basically means the month just started and you have not yet done any activities against that contract. So that's a good thing because it's telling you like this is blank now. Until the status changes, you haven't fulfilled your obligation, but that is what you're going to be seeing starting October 1st. You're going to get some high-level contract information here as well. And again, those people that's assigned to your contract, including your contract manager. VSR messages. So the Appian Tech4TX program or the platform has a robust messaging platform built within it. And we're going to talk about that in the second part, but just know that the ability to send messages and receive messages is within the application. So we'll talk about that more in the second part. And this last tab is customers. So if you've used the vendor sales reporting portal today, you'll notice that we do have a lookup screen, and that's how you look up our customers. But there's a lot of information that isn't there. So we made it a major point to be as transparent as possible. So you'll notice that like on this screen, I actually have a filter here, but you'll see that we're exposing not only all of our customers, but we're telling you if their status is eligible or ineligible to do sales. You'll see what their customer sector types are. So are they a state agency? Are they a K through 12? Are they a local gov? Whatever. And their sector subtypes. And this is all really to give as much information to our vendors as much as possible so that you know that the person or the entity that you're reporting for is the one that we are we have in our system, right? We don't want you to have to guess of like, okay, this one kind of looks like this one. I'm not 100% sure. We're trying to give you as much information. And a lot of this will also look blank because we don't have a lot of this information on our customers, but we hope to build this out over time. So, but again, you'll notice that you have all these eligible and ineligible customers. You'll have on most of these screens, you'll have a pretty robust searching and filtering capabilities. So this is a wildcard search. So if I looked up Department of Information, click on search, it will pull up all the customers that we have Department of Information in their name, right? And you should be able to see, but you go, oh, okay, I'm trying to report sales for Texas Department of Information Resources. They're right here. They're eligible. They are a state agency. Here's some acronyms, or I'm sorry, some customer aliases or AKAs for our customers, especially state agencies. If you've dealt with them long enough, we have a lot of acronyms and initials for all of our names. So this is also to help you figure out, like, is this the entity that I'm actually reporting for? Our state agencies also have codes, so you'll see that there. If we have a website, we'll display it. If we have a customer address, we'll display that there. But again, you have a lot more capabilities on this reports tab. And we do hope to build out this report tab for more information on your side, but you'll see that we're exposing a lot of the data on our side. Okay, so again, you have all these filters up here, and again, we'll get into this a lot more in the next once we get back to the customer list. But I just want to make sure that everybody can see that you have this tab over here called customers that that should be very helpful to you. You'll also notice that you have this download button. You can export anything out to Excel as long as you see that button there. If you add in a filter, let's just say I just want to look at eligible state agencies. State agencies. You'll see that the number of records is 129. If I clicked on that export, it's going to export it nicely out to Excel with those 129 results that I have in the screen. If you're wondering why don't I see customer contact information, it's because we don't have it on the screen, or at least we're not intending to have contact information for our customers listed here, but you will be able to see their names and who they are. Okay. Alrighty, so we've talked about the left-hand nav. We've talked about the waffle icon. So again, this waffle icon, this is how you're going to jump across applications within the Tech4TX platform. So if you have access to multiple things like vendor management and VSR, you will see that all in the in that waffle icon. Okay. We've talked about the dashboard. Let's go back to the contracts tab, and I wanted to go into one of these contracts. So I'm going to click on 4437 again. Again, this is where you're going to go in and update people associated to your contract so that they can start reporting against it, right? This is all very high level contract information. This is to give you an idea of, okay, is this contract still active? What is the status of this VSR submission for this particular month? The start and end dates for this contract. Again, I'm in a test system, so you'll see some old stuff in here. And your contract manager and all that good stuff. You have these tabs up across here. So you have the summary tab, which is the summary of your contract. Sales reports, this is where you're going to do the majority of your work. This is where you're going to be submitting your VSRs. You'll also have a history screen of all the sales that you've updated, at least in this new system. We are not porting over any of our old data in the old VSRs. We will still continue to hold on to that information in the background, but this is your first notification that if there's information in the old system that you want to go in and grab, like old reports that you've uploaded or a history of what you've done, I advise that you do that now before we turn off access to the old VSR system. We will very likely have it up through October and beyond, at least for a month or two, but it will be in read-only status, just so that vendors aren't trying to submit their VSRs in the old system and the new system. When we move over in October, it will be a complete lift and shift for all of our contracts. So you're not going to be reporting in the old system anymore. Okay. But you'll notice that you have a history screen of all the VSRs and the activities on those VSRs. And again, a lot of test data here, so you'll see a lot of information, but you'll see that, you'll have not only the report in the whichever period that you submitted, you'll see that status for that particular report, who uploaded it, and when did they upload it, what was the total amount of sales to it. When we eventually close, you'll actually see the admin fees on that particular that particular VSR that you submitted that was accepted. So you'll see what those fees are, and you will be able to download copies of that PDF of what your administrative fees are. So because again, I don't have that here, but once we close the month and once you get a notification basically saying how much your company owes, you will be able to go back out here and download out those reports anytime you want. Okay. You'll also see when we eventually close the month and when you got that notification. This download button over here is also a place where you can either download the Excel spreadsheet that you had uploaded, or at least a copy of it, and it'll also be where you can download errors on reports that you've uploaded. But we'll get into that more once we get into how to upload your VSRs on the next slide, very likely. But again, so this sales report tab is where you're going to be submitting that. Again, you have like these buttons here that you can export out to Excel. You can actually create filters. So if you filter any of these screens, you can save a filter and you can toggle that. I can show you that in a little bit. You'll also have two buttons here: submit vendor sales report or submit zero sales report. We'll talk about that once we get into the uploading, but again, you'll see that it's fairly easy to start the process to upload your reports. This tab here, sales item submit credits. This will essentially be a history screen or a detailed history screen of everything that you've uploaded. This will get filled out as we start to get into the new system and you start to submit your reports. This will not have data that has not been closed yet. So let's say you're reporting in October for September sales. We don't close September probably until November 5th in this scenario. So you won't have anything here until we close. So after November 5th or whenever we actually close, then all the data on your VSR will show up here, and you'll have basically a giant tableized view of all the data that you've submitted in this new system. We are not taking over any of our old data, but we will have that on the back end at VAR. Okay. And again, you'll see all of these like very robust filterings and searching. This is all wildcard searching. So you can search any number of, like, you can search anything and it'll search across any of the fields on your VSR, and you should be able to find those particular records. Okay. This is also where you're going to be submitting credits. So we're going to talk about submitting credits, but just know that when you're submitting credits, this is where all of that will be located. VSR messages, I talked about that a little bit, but again, this is where messages will display within the application. So you can compose and you can send messages across the platform to DIR staff as needed. This last tab is view credits. It's basically a history of all the credits that you submitted in this new system. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the credits part. Okay, and the last thing I want to say about the VSR UI, at least, is that there is a timeout in the system. So if you're sitting here and the screen is idle, I believe it's 15 minutes. But if you're idle, it will log you out. So just know that there's a logical limit to how long you can be in the system. And if you're submitting a VSR and you kind of forget about it and you walk away, the screen is not going to remember what you were doing, or if you're in the middle of fixing errors or something, it's not going to be that smart. You'll have records of what you tried to do, but you may have to restart your work if you don't have activities in the system. As long as you're actively using the system, it won't time you out. But I think the limit is 15 minutes, and that's an agency policy. So, okay. So let's talk about the template now. So I'm going to pull up our template, and you should have a copy of that in the email that we had sent out previously. You'll have a template example, but what I wanted to show, actually, let me show this real quick. when you're in the contracts tab and you're in any of our contracts under the sales report tab, you'll have this link here that says click here to go to download template page. So all of our templates are not, so today you have 3 different templates, depending on the contract that you have with the IR. We have a co-op template, we have a staffing services template, we have a telecom template, and I believe we have a debits template. So that's actually 4. We have 4 different templates, of which it's all pretty much describing the same type of stuff, right? You're just telling us what you sold and who you sold it to. So we worked on the back end and we consolidated it into one, and we made it as streamlined as possible, so the data points aren't jumping all over the place. But in order to get to the template, you'll notice that it's a link on every single contract page, as opposed to a single template that can be used for everything. We're going to get into why we're advocating that you download templates fresh on every single month, but you'll notice, and I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet now, this is essentially the template. And again, this was in your email. But this one has some test data in there as well. But you'll notice that these tabs on the bottom here, contract, customers, resellers, subcontractors, brand, and product types, these are all dynamically generated when you generate that template. So I generated this template for July of 2025. When I clicked on that template, it downloaded. You'll notice that the file name has changed, right? It's not a generic file name. It's not just VSR Template 01, right? It's what is the reporting month? July of 2025. What is the contract number? 4437. And it says VSR Template, right? But if you look at this contracts tab, it's also looking at what is the contract that that this template was made for. The reporting month, vendor name, contract number, contract status, the RFOs awarded under, your contract manager, and then this is just for us, but template versions, right? So as we're updating templates, this is also a way for us to make sure that you're using the latest and greatest templates. So as we start to release new versions in the future, it is important to not just use the same old, or the same template that you've been using. I would strongly encourage all of our vendors to get used to downloading fresh templates, because you'll notice all these tabs down here also dynamically generate. So this first one is our customers tab. This is essentially what you just saw on the screen, which is all of the customers in the system, only this one only has eligible customers, right? And again, you have all this information. I can add a filter here and look across any number of these fields if I'm looking for a specific customer, and these customer names is exactly what you'll be putting on your sales report, so that the validation will work for that specific line item that you're reporting, right? So you'll have all of this information at your fingertips. If we end up changing our customer list, which it does change month to month depending on new customers, because we don't know every single customer that could purchase through our cooperative contracts program, that list will grow over time. But if you generate that template, it will pull in the latest and greatest, at least at that point in time, right? So again, you have this customers tab that has all that information that we had talked about before. You have this resellers tab. So again, depending on your contract, it will pull in all the resellers on your contract, right? You'll also have an expiration date just in case, like there was a reseller on your contract and you're no longer using them, or they're no longer able to be sold under. You at least have that data in case you're like reporting an old sale and it's against that one reseller. You at least know, oh, okay, that particular reseller expired on, say, 3/30 of 2023. So your sales has to fall within this period, right? But you at least have all of that information at your fingertips, all the reseller data on your contract. So you're not having to juggle between the website and the template and all that good stuff, right? Subcontractors, again, if you had subcontractors on your contract, it will be displayed here, but for this particular test case, you do not have subcontractors. Brands, again, this is the data that's connecting on the back end. Some of our contracts have a lot of brands on it. Some of them don't have a lot of brands on it. But if you generate that template, it will pull in the latest and greatest, and you will be able to see that there. Product types is a new field or a new tab that we're going to talk about once we get over to the instructions tab. But you'll see why there's a tab here called product types. But again, all of these are dynamically generated at the time of when you generate that template. So I'm going to go back over. There's instructions and sales report. Sales report is exactly where you're going to put it in all of your data. Again, same rules as before. Don't make modifications to the columns. Don't make modifications to the column headers or the column names. If you do that, you will get a giant error message. But this is where you're going to put in your sales data. And the instructions tab. This is where we're going to talk about every single field on the VSR and what that means. What you'll notice is that we logically split the VSR into three or more general sections. So the first section of the VSR is about the customer. Who did you sell it to, right? Second section is all about the reseller or subcontractor in case you used a reseller or subcontractor. And the last section is all about the sale. What did you actually sell? How much of it did you sell? And what did you sell it at, right? So you'll see here, I'm going to expand this a little bit. We can see it, but you'll notice that a lot of these fields already exist. You're already submitting it. It's just in a kind of a disjointed way in the current template, right? But what we try to clean it up so that it's in a logical order. So customer name, again, you're already submitting that. There should be no mystery to you. But again, that customer name is going to be validated against that customer's tab, right? Or whatever's really, it's validating against what is in the system. So this is just a list at that point in time. Is probably your best bet of who is a customer. But again, this is validating against who is an eligible customer at that point in time, and if it matches the name, right? Customer contact information, this is all required as well. Oh, so you'll see here on these headers, you have the name of the column, the instructions on how to report it, whether or not it's required, optional, or conditional, and then the field format in terms of, what are the acceptable formats for that particular field. So the next after your customer name is the contact. Who did you sell it to and who was associated with that sale? So you'll submit their name, their email, their phone number. Okay. After that is the billing address associated to that customer. So you can put in the address as best as you can. Again, this is also required, nothing new today. But the address that's associated to that customer. This is new, shipping address information. In case the shipping address is different than the billing address, this will help build out that profile of all of our customers. So we do appreciate if you can put it in there. It is optional if you don't want to have it. If you don't want to populate it, you don't have to. If you don't have it, you don't need to enter it. But this is an optional field of what that shipping address is associated to that customer. After that, it's that reseller. So depending on your contract, if you're allowed to have resellers on this contract, and if that sale is tied to a reseller, that is what you'll put there. You'll put in your reseller's name and that reseller's contact information. You can also put in your subcontractor if you ended up using a subcontractor. Again, that depends on your contract structure. And if you have subcontractors allowed on your contract, and it's a one or the other, right? Like you're either if you're not conducting the sale yourself, if you're going to use a reseller or a subcontractor, you can't use both. So you'll either put in the reseller and its information or just a subcontractor. Okay. And the next section is all about the sale. So expand this a little bit so we can see it. So the first thing is, or the first field that we're asking for on the sale is, what is the customer's purchase reference number? If you're dealing with a state agency, we call them purchase order numbers, but they essentially operate the same way. What was the customer's assigned unique identifier for that particular purchase? Okay, and that is required, nothing new. What was the order date? When did the customer contact you and order the particular product or service that your contract provides? That is also required. The vendor invoice reference number. So what ID or what reference number did you assign to that invoice? So that when you turn around and bill the customer, what unique ID do you have associated to that, right? So again, nothing new. You're already putting it there, but that is what the vendor invoice reference number is. The vendor invoice date, that is typically what's going to determine whether or not it gets onto this report. So your vendor invoice date is telling you when you eventually invoice the customer, and if it's in the month of reporting sales, it will get onto that report. You can continue to submit past sales. There's no consequence of submitting past sales, but typically your invoice date is going to determine whether or not it gets onto this report. So if you have an invoice date that is, let's say we're in the month of July, right? If you have any invoice dates that's in the month of August, you can't put it on that report. You have to wait until the August report, right? But that's all the vendor invoice date is. As pricing index reference ID, this is something that we're going to utilize in the future. You can leave that blank for now. Just know that if you see that on the template, that's what it is. We're going to use it in the future. Next two fields are your product or service name and then a product service description. These both are required. But an example would be if your product service name was a Dell Optiplex 7330, right? And your product service description would be, 32 gigs of RAM or 1 terabyte of space, or it comes with a monitor, all that good stuff, right? So you can enter in your product service name as in its simplest form, and then the description that has all that supporting data based on that product or service. So you'll put that in those two fields. The manufacturer part number or the sales product ID, that is the unique MPN that is associated to that particular product. And that is what you as vendors would maintain. That is an optional field, so if you don't have it, you don't have it. Product brand name, again, that is going back to your brand's tab. So depending on your contract and what brands are there, that is what you're going to put in those fields under the brand name, and that is conditional if your contract has brands on it. Although I think most of our contracts have brands, so you will be utilizing that quite a bit. Product types and subtypes. So this is a new field, and this is coming out of reporting requirements that DIR has for our any of our legislative sessions, or really the type of data that we're trying to do is we're trying to describe what our customers are buying, how much of it are they buying, when did they buy it, right? And the product types and subtypes are really just general buckets of data. Depending on the contract, you may have multiple product types and subtypes. So I'm going to go back over to this product types tab. And for this particular contract, we at DIR are assigning product types and subtypes based on that RFO. So the RFO is what's telling us, okay, here are the general things that's being sold under this contract. You have services, you have different types of printers, and you have software. And we made this as generic as possible depending on our reporting needs. But if you have a bunch of, or a list of different product types and subtypes, it's because your RFO is a little bit more complicated. If you have computers, we typically want to see, okay, was it a laptop? Was it a desktop? Was it a server? Were they just monitors or peripherals? Whatever. You might see a lot of product types and subtypes depending on your contract. But you'll notice that depending on your contract, you'll have the choice of what product types and subtypes to populate on your sale. So we're asking all of our vendors for all of your sale items to make a determination of what you actually sold. It's hard for us to understand what you sold based on your product description that you're providing today. So we're asking all of our vendors to put this information so that we can confidently say, state agencies bought, $40 million worth of computers last quarter or whatever, right? We really need that information to come from our vendors, specifically because our contracts are getting more complicated and our contracts have, a slew of different things that you're selling, right? So going back to the instructions tab, these are required. We do ask that when you generate that template, that's why it's important to generate the template, at least at the very beginning, is that you'll understand what product types are on your contract so that you can populate your sales report, right? Okay, so product type, that is what that is. There are some rules here. If you have an ITSAC contract, you'll actually have all of your levels and titles and all the NTE rates that will show up on your product tab. And that's what this NTE rate column is here. So if we have any ITSAC vendors on the call, that's what that's going to be used for. And I'll give an example at the end of the presentation of what that looks like. DBITS contracts. So if you have a deliverables based ITS contract, you will have your general categories, I believe is what they're called in for the DBITS contracts. But that is where you're going to pull that information. You'll see it on your product types tab. Okay. Next, you're going to be describing your sale. So this is new. At least we split it up. But you're either going to describe what is your contract discount percentage or your contract discount set price. Actually, this is separated today. So when you're negotiating your contract for that particular item, did you negotiate for it to have a percentage that is going to be at discount, or was there a discount set price? So did you negotiate for it to be sold at $100, or did you negotiate for it to be sold at a 20% discount, right? So that's all we're asking, is for you to populate whether or not you did a discount percentage and what was that percentage, and then that discount set price and what was that discount set price. Okay. Next field is product MSRP or list price. So that is the at the manufacturer level, what is being advertised out there. So if the MSRP is $99.99 and you sold it at $70, we want to see what that MSRP is, right? And depending on the type of contract, you may or may not be required to do so, or to enter this particular field. Okay. Next, you have your sales unit price and quantity. Again, that hasn't changed. What did you sell it at and how much? I'll caveat it right now that credits will not be put onto your sales report. And we're going to get into credits in the second part, but just know that this does not allow for like a negative unit price or a negative quantity. If you've submitted credits on your sales reports, you may be used to that, but we're going to talk about how you're going to be submitting credits in the new system. But just know that there's validation logic here that says do not put in a negative price or a negative quantity. That sales extended price is just a multiplication between the price and the quantity. So you should be able to, you can just add in a formula that just says this times that, or you can calculate it yourself, but there will be validation that happens after that. And those are all required, obviously. Next, you have your vendor comments. So this is a new field. This is literally whatever you want to put in that field. Any comments that you want to associate to that sale or communicate back to DIR, you can put that in the vendor comments field. Okay. And the last part, it's kind of dependent on the contract, but the first field is EPEAT certified. So EPEAT stands for the Electronic Product Environmental Assessment Tool. It's basically talking about how green or environmentally friendly that particular item is. So if it is bronze, silver, or gold, you can put those in. That is not changed from the current system. It helps us understand, our environmental impact of our sales to our customers and all that good stuff. The next one is the bulk purchase agreement number. Technically, you're only putting in yes or blank, but if that particular item was sold under a bulk purchase agreement with DIR, you'll just put in yes. Otherwise, you can just leave that blank. Customer contract purchase agreement end date. This is only relevant if your contract is in surviving status. We want to know for that particular item or for that particular sales item, how far out is that purchase order? So how far out do we expect for you to report sales under this particular agreement, right? So surviving contracts, for those that don't know, is when your contract is at the expiration of your contract, depending on what is negotiated between you and your contract manager, you could be allowed to submit surviving sales. So you can come into agreements before the contract expires, and you can continue to sell those particular items under that purchase agreement, as long as it falls within the period of surviving sales. So if you have a surviving contract, you will be reporting it in the new VSR. And if you have a surviving sales, you're going to put in whatever that end date is. Okay. TechStamp certified, that is for all of our cloud services and products. So if your item is cloud certified, or I'm sorry, ramp certified through our program, you can enter in the word yes, otherwise you will leave that blank. So that is what ramp certified is. And again, that is a field that you're populating today if you are selling ramp certified products. And the last three is only if you have a staffing services contract or an ITSEX contract. So what is that? Solicitation reference number. Typically that could be the portal number associated to that sale, or the reference number. Sorry, it could be the reference number that the customer assigned. So we do ask that that is put there. The first and last name of the contractor that was hired, and then the undefined title. This is really only relevant if you're an ITSEC vendor and you've submitted a sale on a title that doesn't exist. So you can use that undefined title part of the contract, and we're just asking that you enter in whatever that real title is. So if you're an ITSEC vendor, it makes perfect sense. If you're not, that meant nothing to you. But if you're not an ITSEC vendor, you can completely ignore these last few fields. Okay. Alrighty, in a nutshell, that is all the fields that we have on the VSR template. Very likely this is exactly what you will report for starting on October 1st. That template that you got in the email is just that. It's just an example of a template. If you need a copy, or if you'd like to see what we have in store for your particular contracts, you can email us, and we'll have some contact information on the side here. But it will give you an idea of what you're going to be reporting for in the next system, and you'll see how it dynamically generates these tabs and what those product types are depending on your contract. Okay, so that is all the instructions. Sales report, again, we talked about this a little bit, but we're going to get into what information is here. But you'll notice I put a lot of test data, or at least 4 rows of test data. You'll see as you scroll across, this is essentially what we're asking our vendors to do to submit your VSR in an accepted format. And we're going to talk about how to upload it, how to resolve errors, all that good stuff in just a bit. Looking at our agenda, I do want to talk about customers while I have the chance. So I'm going to go back over to our portal. I'm going to go into the customers tab. So what I would like to advocate for all of our vendors is that when you're reporting your sales, that you're actively looking at our customer list. And you can add in people within your company that's conducting sales or whatever, so that they can be exposed to these types of screens. And I think it would be a really good idea to do so. When you're submitting your VSRs, you're only going to be submitting eligible customers, right? So let's say you're looking up a particular customer. I'm going to take off this filter that I had here, and I'm going to look up County of Hidalgo, right? If I look that up, I don't have a customer in the system that is County of Hidalgo, or at least if I was a vendor and I was doing that research, it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that they're not eligible. It just means that we don't know about them, right? So how do we get around that? That's what this new customer eligibility request button is for. So for any of our customers that we don't know about, but you're dealing with them, you can submit a new customer eligibility request form. And you can enter in all the data that you have on this particular entity. And you can say, yeah, they're a local gov, and they are a city, and this is their name, this is their website, this is where they're located. They're publicly funded, or they're privately funded, or they're nonprofit, like any one of these, that you want to select. And then you can give their contact information in case we need to do some more research, reach out to the customer, whatever. But the idea is that if you're proactively going out to a customer list and you're dealing with a customer that wants to buy off of your contract, you should go out here and look and say, well, are you even eligible to purchase or not, right? So you can not only see the eligibility rules, which is in this URL, which basically just goes back to the DIR website with all of our eligibility statutes. But what I want all of our vendors to do is to not get to the finish line where you've already sold the thing and you've already probably delivered the item to the customer, just so that you can submit your VSR and then we turn around and say, you know what, that customer is ineligible. You need to cancel that contract, or let that customer know that they're not protected by the terms and conditions. Right? That seems very backward. And that's why we very specifically designed it this way, is that customers, as long as they're eligible, can be reported against. But if you don't see it, then you should submit a new customer eligibility request and give us 5 to 7 days to review it, depending on the complexity of that customer, whatever. And we'll let you know, okay, great. Didn't know about them. We've added them into the system. Now you can report it. Okay. And again, if let's say you did conduct a sale and you didn't do this step and you don't see the customer and you have to submit this customer eligibility request, we're not going to hold it against you. We're not going to say hey, you submitted a late report because you failed to submit, County of Hidalgo before we got a chance to make it eligible. We do ask that you go out here so that you're saving yourself time and not having to go through the sale and then ultimately probably have to cancel it or let them know. But you can go out here and actively look up these customers and then submit these eligibility requests so that we can let you know, yeah, they're good to go for it. You can start to submit. And if that time rolls over and you're not able to get it on your report, just put it on your next report, right? Just report it as a past sale. So we're not going to hold it against you. It is a shift in how we're asking our vendors to look up our data. But just know that on your VSR, you're not going to be able to put in any ineligible customers or customers that don't exist. It's basically if they're eligible or not. Okay. So let's say you're looking at this list and you're looking at these ineligible customers and you're dealing with somebody that says, yeah, we're very certain that we are eligible to purchase through DIR. Okay. Very unlikely, but possible, right? So if you do find a customer and they are marked as ineligible, you can challenge that. You can click on any one of these customers. So I'm just going to choose one, 3R Inc. So very unlikely that they're eligible to purchase through DIR anyway, because they're a private corporation. But you'll see, this is the information we have on 3R Inc. It's just because somebody reported it in the past at some point. You can contest that eligibility status by clicking on this button. Send us a message saying why you think they're eligible. We'll reach back out if we have questions, but then it is possible that we got it wrong and that will reverse that. But you'll see that you have the ability to not only submit new customer requests, but you'll be able to contest future ones. And you'll notice that if you submit something that's a new request, it's going to go under review until we make a designation of whether or not they're eligible or ineligible. Okay. So that is how customers will operate in the next system. While I'm here, I can show you how the filters work. So you'll notice that I have this filter here. Basically, I can toggle that on or off. But if let's just say I wanted to look up only eligible state agencies, I could create a filter. So if I go to this manage filters button, I can do save filter as, I can do state agencies eligible, hit save, and that becomes a new filter that will basically, I think at the time you can say whether or not you want it to be defaulted or not. I think that's what these stars are, but you can turn them on or off. So if that's what you're looking for, or if that's a filter you want to add, you can do that on any one of these screens that has this button, depending on your filtering or your searching. But you can quickly go back into any of the filters that you've created. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that is all of our that is all I wanted to share up until this point. We can take a 15-minute break unless there's some questions that we can answer now, Anne, or if we can hold it till the end. If there are questions that we can answer at the end of the presentation, I prefer to do that.
There's 3 questions. We can hold them if you want. Yeah,
let's go ahead and hold them. So I'm gonna say let's do a 15-minute break. Let's come back at so it's 10:07, 10:17, 10:22. So let's come back at 10:22. We're gonna talk about uploading your reports, resolving errors, getting your admin fees, submitting credits, all that good stuff. But let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. I'm gonna make it for 10:23 now. I'm gonna edit the slide so that everybody knows when we're coming back. But feel free to go fill up your coffees, all that good stuff, and we will see y'all back at 10:23 Central Time. Thanks. Okay, we are coming up on time. I did see some notifications that my audio was kind of low. Can you let me know if I sound okay right now, or should I change it back?
You do sound louder.
Okay. Hopefully that will be a little better for those on the call. Apologies for that. Okay, let's get back into it. So let's talk about the population of the VSR and where you're going to upload it. So again, I'm in the VSR portal. You'll have these screens in terms of what your contracts are that you're reporting for and how you're going to submit those. If I go into contract 4437, that's going to be our test guinea pig. First, I'm going to talk about the zero sales report. So today, when you're submitting your zero sales report, you download a template, you upload that template, and you basically, that is how you finish it. This system, we're not going to make you do that. You can basically just click on the submit zero sales report. You're going to always get this confirm override if there was already a previously accepted report. So it's really just letting you know, hey, you've got something in the system. Do you really want to override it with something else? And if you say yes, and if you get all the way to a submitted report, then it will basically replace what you've done in the past. So that is also a pretty major change that are, in a given month, you can replace your report as much as you want. If you found sales that you forgot to report, or if you notice an error, you can always override your own work. So you don't have to reach out to DIR to do so. So I'm just going to click on submit. And when you're submitting a zero sales report, this is exactly what you're going to see. It's a zero sales report attestation, basically saying, do you agree or do you confirm that you have no sales on this particular contract in this particular reporting period? And if so, you'll click on submit zero sales report. You're going to get this confirmation message, and you'll see there's a record here at 8:14, or today on 8:14 at 10:24, a zero sales report. And that's it. The obligation for your contract is complete. And you'll have this submitted zero sales report status for that particular contract, right? So that is how you'll submit zero sales reports. Let's say you do want to submit something with sales. So what you'll do is you'll click on the submit vendor sales report button. Again, you're going to get that confirm override, right? I'm going to click on yes, and you'll upload a report. And for this particular one, I'm going to start off with an accepted report, that report that we were just looking at that has 4 records on it. So what you'll notice is that it goes through a virus scan first. It only takes Excel files, so we're not messing with text files or CSV files or whatever. It is just going to take in Excel files. So click on submit. And if there are no issues with your report, you'll get this preview screen. And this report is not done yet until I click on submit. But what you'll notice is that it's a summary screen of what you're about to submit. If you have blank lines on your report, the system is not smart enough to say, oh, okay, this is a blank line, let me skip over it and get some more data. As soon as it sees a blank line, it thinks it's done. So this is really for your purposes to confirm whether or not what you're uploading is what you expected, right? So on this preview screen, it's saying, okay, there are 4 rows and there's $3,600 worth of sales. And here's like a high level view of like what you submitted, right? If this doesn't look right, you can always cancel it and go out and redo it. But if this looks right, you'll click on submit. You'll get this confirmation screen message saying your report obligations for the month of July 2025 for this contract 4437 is done. You click on OK, and you'll get back to the contract screen, and you'll see that that previously submitted zero sales report goes into this vendor withdrawn status. Anything that you've submitted previously that was like in an accepted status will change over to vendor withdrawn. And that's basically just for record keeping purposes. Okay. The new one now becomes submitted accepted. And you'll see very high level information of like, okay, me, vendor admin test, uploaded it at 10/27. It had $3,600 worth of sales on it. If I click on that contract number here, you'll see all the rows of what you had just submitted, right? There is an estimated, or at least it will tell you what that admin fee percentage is based on the period of that sale, but it's not going to calculate what that admin fee is until we're done with that month. But that's really just for you to say, okay, yeah, this does look accurate, right? So go back into contracts. I'm going to go back to my contract, back to sales report. Again, you'll have this information here. You can always download a copy of your VSR if you want. That's going to be there. So submitting a report, as long as it's in an accepted format, is very simple. That's all you're going to see, right? But let's do one where there's errors on it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to confirm override. I'm going to upload a report. Actually, I'm going to do an incorrect template first. So if you messed with the template, like if you deleted tabs or you deleted columns, changed up the column names, use a template version that we didn't know about or the ones that's not the most current. If you uploaded something and click on submit, you'll have this big VSR upload fail. It's basically telling you there's something wrong with your template. Go in and generate a new template so that you have the latest and greatest and then start building from there. So the system has a logical validation point of, are you at least uploading the template that I'm expecting in the format that I expected? Okay. So now let's upload one with actual errors on it and let's see what those look like. So I'm going to click on this one called errors. It's going to do the virus scan. I click on submit. You're not going to get to the preview screen because there are errors on this report. And you'll notice, so I'm going to scroll up a little bit. You'll see the VSR that you've uploaded has 28 errors total. And it's going to give you some high level information on how to fix it. If you see here, there's a link here called list of errors. You could click on that and it'll open up in an Excel file or it'll download a copy to your computer of the errors on this report. Okay. And it's basically an Excel version of what you're about to see. And this is a UI version of how you can resolve those errors. So if you have a low number of errors or you have a low number of rows, I would suggest using the UI to fix your errors. It is kind of visually, you can see exactly what you're supposed to do, right? So what you'll notice is there's a table here, and if there's a lot of rows, you're going to have a lot of records to look at. And again, if you have a lot of rows, I wouldn't advocate for you to fix errors that way. But you'll notice that in this mini table, you'll see all the rows that you uploaded. The first row that I uploaded did not have an error on it. That's why there's not a red triangle there. But for everything else, there's at least one error on there to resolve, right? So if I click on those, table below will update with exactly what I uploaded. And it'll tell you which fields are wrong and how to fix it, right? So on my file, I typed in Texas Department of Insurance TDI. That is not their official name. So what it's saying is review it. So this dropdown has all of our eligible customers. So if you wanted to look up Texas Department of Insurance, you can click on that there. And as soon as you resolve things, it will clear out those error messages. You'll notice that error is still there because you have a lot of errors to resolve, right? But I left these fields blank. These have to be populated. Okay, so test contact t@mail.com 512-475-1234. And you'll notice as I'm entering data, it's clearing out those messages. If I put in something that, let's say, wasn't in an email format, right? You'll get error messages specifically about what you're doing and how to resolve it. So I'm not going to show you every single error message, but a lot of these are either based on the validation rules are based on what you're expected to put in, if it's pinging it against the system, or if it's a formatting issue, right? Like an email has to look like an email. A phone number has to have the number of digits that a phone number has, right? Same thing with the billing address. So I can put in 123 Street, That resolves that, but now I need a city, so I'm going to go with Austin. Billing state, I'm going to say Texas. Billing zip code 7874541. And there you go. I resolved that, right? Shipping address was optional. I didn't put anything in there. But if I had put something like an incomplete address, I should error out. But that's the idea, is that addresses should come together, right? I can't put in something that's incomplete. And that's at least what I had for this particular row. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll have these mini tables that you can navigate across rows. So you can either click on this error or this arrow, and it'll go to the next row with all the the next row that you were on, which is how I did that. Or you can click on the table here; it'll also do the same thing. But you'll notice that again. So this particular errors I put in was all about the resellers, right? So I put in a reseller that didn't exist. I put in Advanced Business Systems Inc. So if I chose the right name, it'll clear out. But now it's saying, okay, you chose a reseller, clear out or put in the reseller's contact information, right? Just put in whatever, r@mail.com, and then put in a phone number. And there you go. That resolved it, right? I don't have any subcontractors to choose from, but you get the idea, right? It's either you either use a reseller or a subcontractor, or you don't use either. So, and I got this question last time as well, but this submit button is really just saying like, I'm done. I'm fully complete on fixing my errors. You'll notice I have an error left. So even if I click on the submit button, it's still saying you have to complete everything in order for us to continue, right? And if you sat here and couldn't resolve the errors, or you just kind of walked away, it could time you out and you might not get back to the screen. On your history screen or your contract screen, you should have a row there that says rejected pending user corrections with a link to the errors file if you at least didn't get there. Otherwise, you can just upload it again and download it. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next row. I'm going to look at this error. I'm going to scroll down until I see those red fields. Now I made some errors on my sales report. And this is the first one saying like the customer order date has to fall within the period of that contract. And because I'm looking at test data, this is going back to 2024. So if I do that, it fixes it. Again, it has to look like a date. It has to be a date that makes sense in the context of your contract. It can't be a future date, all that good stuff, right? I put in a purchase reference number. I put in a vendor invoice reference number. The vendor invoice date, again, is looking at it and saying it has to be during the active period. So let's say I put in 2024. It still doesn't make sense because you can't invoice a customer before they order it, right? So here I'm going to change this to 9/10 of 2024. And if I click out, the screen will refresh and it'll say, yeah, I got it. We're good, right? So I'm going to fill out these fields that were required. Brand name, I have that one brand in this contract, right? I can choose product types, and there's some test data here, but I'm going to choose services, and then the subtype is going to be general. Contract discount percentage, you shouldn't ever have a contract discount percentage that you negotiated that wasn't between 0 and 100, right? You can't have 200% discount percent. So this is really just correct that. So I'm going to put it back at 10. And I can't have I can't have both, right? So I can't put $100 as a discount set price here because it doesn't make sense. You negotiated for one or the other. So there is a lot of logic here to make sure that you're putting in data that is good to go, right? And this is what I was talking about earlier about credits and how you're submitting credits today, which is denoted with negative signs and stuff like that. You can't have credits on your VSR report. So if I fix that, that error message will go away, that you can't put a negative quantity or you can't put in a negative price. Now it's saying that my sales extended price didn't add up, right? It is going to tell me what it thinks it is, which is $900. But if I make that change, we should be good to go. Okay. And that in a nutshell is how you resolve errors through the screen. And I'm going to share the errors file in just a bit, but once I'm done with all the errors, once I've looked through my table, I don't see anything else, I can click on submit. I'll get the same preview screen, right? I have 4 records, it's $3,600, everything else looks good to go. Click on submit, I get that submit complete button, click on OK, and you'll notice that the previous one turned into vendor withdrawn. The one I just submitted now becomes submitted accepted. And as long as you have that one submitted accepted or that 0 sales report at the end of the month, you're fine, you're good, right? But you can withdraw your own files as you progress through the month. Okay? Okay, so we talked about populating the VSR, uploading the VSR, resolving those errors. Let's look at that errors file. And it really is just an Excel spreadsheet with an Excel spreadsheet with all of those errors listed out. We don't dump out the same, file or the same row that you had done previously. That was kind of a strange way to put all of our errors. So if you had a bunch of errors, it would all show up in one cell, basically. This is an error based on every single error that you get. Again, depending on what you're about to put in, it may not resolve this error fully. Like if the error message for this customer name was like invalid customer name, if you went back to your spreadsheet and cleared it out and now it's blank and you uploaded it, you're going to get a new error message that basically says customer name can't be blank. So I can't guarantee that these error messages are going to resolve your issue depending on what you're doing, but you'll get a rhythm of what is expected in the system, right? So like logically, the customer has to be eligible, it has to match our names, and it has to be populated, right? And then you'll see all the error messages for every single row. You'll have this row number, you'll have what the column is that errored out, and then what that error message is. Exactly what you would have seen on the UI. If you're working this, you could have this plus your other file open at the same time, and you can just go through and make sure that you're fixing it as best as you can, and then try again. Save that file, re-upload. I know today our vendors are, uploading files, seeing the errors, resolving those errors, uploading that file again and again. What we tried to do was try to minimize that as much as logically possible. We want you to really either get it on the first try or have 1 or 2 more tries depending on the types of errors or how many records that you're trying to upload. But hopefully this makes it a lot easier for our vendors to actually upload your reports in a clean way, right? Last thing I want to talk about is asynchronous or synchronous file uploading. So our system has a logical limit to how many rows can be displayed or processed at any time in that UI. I believe that limit right now is 50 rows. So if you upload a report and it has more than 50 rows, the system will basically take your report and put it to the side to process when there isn't, when there's ample space on the server to process your file. So if somebody uploaded a file with 200,000 rows, it could cripple the entire system. So we had to put some kind of logical limit to how many rows the system can validate at that point in time. And right now it's set to 50. We can increase that or we can reduce that depending on what kind of things we see once we launch this in October. But you'll notice, so I'm going to submit a sales report. I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to choose a file that has more than 50 rows on it. So that's what this file is here, async. So I'm going to click on submit. And the way you know that you triggered it is that you're going to get this screen instead, submission in progress. And this is basically just telling you, okay, we got your file. We're processing in the background. You can go ahead and close out of this screen. It'll take you back to this screen. And now you're going to get a reporting status of in progress or validating. If you sit here and you wait for the system to process it, the person who uploaded it will get an email. And the email will basically say, yeah, we got your file, it's good. Or if it's not good, you can go back to the screen and you can download the errors and resolve it that way. So depending on how many rows you have and how unclean it is, you could have a lot of things to resolve. So I'm going to refresh the screen and you'll see that it has updated to submitted accepted because the file I put in there I wasn't expecting it to fail. But if it did fail, you would have seen a reporting status of rejected pending user corrections. You would have had a download link over here on the right-hand side with those errors, exactly like you had just seen before. But you'll notice that that file had $57,000 worth of sales on it. It removed or withdrew those previous records. And now this submitted accepted at 57,600 is my report for July of 2025. Okay. Okay, I think that's everything on VSR uploading. Let's talk about those statuses real quick. So I talked about it very early on, but when you log in at the beginning of every month before any activity is done, all of your reports on your contracts that we expect a report for will say not yet submitted. That's basically your start line, right? As you start to do your activities up until the due date, if you submit a zero sales report, it'll say submitted zero sales report. If you submit something with sales, it'll say submitted accepted. But as we get closer to the due date, those in your contract, everybody that's listed over here in your contract, listed under that contract, will get emails. If you have not yet submitted your report or you didn't get your report in that accepted status, you'll get emails up until the due date saying, hey, you got 3 more days to submit your report. You have 2 more days. You have 1 more day. Now you're overdue, right? So as you're getting these notifications, if you were to submit a report after the due date, and you'll know that due date based up here, right? If you submit a report after the due date, you're going to get if you're able to upload it and get it into an accepted status, it'll say late and submitted, or late and zero sales report. I think it's just late submitted. And if you don't submit anything for the entirety of the month, like you didn't get anything in, you'll get a message, or the status for that particular month is just going to say not submitted. So that is probably the worst thing you could do, which is not get a report in when you were expected to. So that, again, will go into more of a contract stuff of whether or not your contract is suspended or turned off, whatever. So we do expect all of our vendors to submit their reports, but you'll get all these different statuses to let you know whether or not you're good or if we're still expecting a report from you. Okay. And again, you'll get email notifications going up to the due date for each of your contracts, depending on the people that's on that contract. You'll get notifications saying, hey, this report is coming up. You need to submit it by the 15th. If you don't, every single day after the 15th, the people on that contract will get an email, including your contract manager at DIR. Everybody will get that email saying, you haven't submitted for 4437. You haven't submitted for whatever your contract number is. So you'll get notifications all the way up until that point. And then if the month is over, so in order to submit my July report, I have the entirety of August to submit that report. September 1st, if I log in, that's it. Now we're looking at August reporting. So you've already missed the boat for July reporting. So you have up until the very last day of the month. But again, you want to get in early. You want to make sure that you get this obligation out of the way. Okay. All righty. Few more topics before we're done for this morning. So submitting credits. We talked about how credits will not be on your VSR. We also talked about how sales will not be, or any VSRs that you've submitted in the current system will not show in this new system. We're not planning on converting any of that old data. So let's say you want to submit a credit, and a credit could be either, a customer could have canceled on you and you're trying to get a credit back on a sale that you had previously reported. And essentially you're trying to get your admin fee back, right? So rule number 1 for credits is that it has to be a sale that was in the past. You would never submit a credit on the current month. So that's rule number 1, right? Rule number 2 is that that credit has to be up until the amount that you had previously reported. So if you had submitted a sale and we see it was for $50,000 and you submitted a credit for $100,000, that makes no sense, right? It can only be up until the total amount of what you had submitted for that particular item. Okay? So that's number 2. If you notice, if I go over to the sales item submit credits, if I had sales here, as soon as they close, they will show up on the screen. You'll have this action column here, which is basically, it's just going to say submit credit, and there will be a link there. So if you wanted to submit a credit on sales that you've reported in the new VSR, it's very simple. You'll click on that link. You'll say how much you want to submit a credit for and how you want to receive your admin fee. For everything else, there is a way to upload credits in a file. You can do it if you have a lot of credits to submit and you don't want to go through the screen to go through every single credit that you want to report for. You can do this if there's a credit on a sale that doesn't exist in this system, but it was something that you previously submitted. So we understand and we recognize that. So if you click on this credit upload screen, you'll have a template that you can download. You'll have a credit upload. Actually, I'm going to download that template so we can take a look at it in just a bit. Actually, yeah, let's take a look at it right now. So this is the credit file. It's very bare bones right now. We do plan on making changes to it, but this should be good enough for day one. But you'll have basic information of like, who did you sell it to? What was that purchase reference number? How much are you asking for it in a credit? Why are you submitting that credit? And then what was the original order date for that particular sale? And then you can submit as much supporting evidence here as well. Like if you have a lot of information to send to us, or if you want to send it to us in the original way that you have submitted it, you can put it all in this tab. We will do that research and we'll let you know if that credit was approved. So going back to the portal, you can do this upload if you have a lot of credits or if you have sales in an old system, whatever. But if you want to do that, you'll have to say, how would you want your refund? So technically, if you submit a credit and it is approved, you could either say, just take it off the top, reduce my future admin fees by that amount, or you can get a check from the controller. If you do that, you have to tell us where you want it sent to. But technically, you could get a check for any of your credits. That has come up in the past. For credit reasons, right now we only have 2 reasons as to why you're submitting a credit. So either the customer canceled on you in part or in whole, or you're making an adjustment to a previously submitted sale that is not accurate, right? If you go through the upload credit process here in a file, it will be reviewed by our team and we'll let you know if it is approved. If you choose a credit or choose an item in the system, so once the system is up and once we've started to close sales, you'll be able to report credits against that. As long as you submit a credit up until that amount, those will be auto-approved. We just ask, like, again, when you're submitting these credits, you have to attest that you're holding on to this documentation and then that credit is accurate. So if we ever come back to you and say, okay, show us the email between you and the customer saying that that you've canceled that sale, you need to have that supporting documentation. Okay. Okay, that is credits. So again, credits do not go in your VSR. It will be through the screen. If you click on this View Credits tab over here on the far right, it will have a history of all the credits that you submitted and whether or not they were approved, or if they were applied, or if they went out via check. You'll have all of that information here. So transparency is the number one goal of this new system. Okay. Okay. So VSR messages. Let's talk about the message center. So in the VSR, or at least in Appian, we have a robust messaging platform of which you can see, here's a history of all different types of messages in the system. And again, this is all test data. If you compose a message, if you're in the context of the contract, so just making sure I'm here on the contracts, I clicked on VSR messages, and then I clicked on compose message. It knows what contract you're trying to send a message on. So it pulled over that information. It knows who your contract manager is, all that good stuff. You can tag other people in your company. So vendor, user, recipients, that is all the people in your company. You could tag multiple people if you wanted to, right? It's essentially like an email and you're CCing people. DIR, user, recipients, you can choose people at DIR to send a message to.
all of our VSR admins, we're going to have our names set to VSR admin, so it's going to be very obvious who they are. And again, we're in a test environment, so you're going to see a bunch of weird names, but you chose to send it to VSR admin, that's great. You'll have a subject, you have your message, you can upload files. So it's very robust. So if you have questions on the VSR or things like that, you can submit your messages there. If you have questions related to like your contract, put that in an email to your contract manager. This isn't necessarily meant to do that or handle that function, but for the most part, if you're trying to send a message either to VSR admins or even our finance folks, you can use this platform. What's great is that these messages are stored in the system, so you don't have to worry about like at our agency, we're not allowed emails will get deleted, people will come and go, all that good stuff. But because it's staying in the system, all these messages stay, and you have a history of like, here's the chain of messages on this particular system, right? Or this particular thread. If you go over here on the left-hand side, there's also a VSR messages tab. This is really at the vendor level, so regardless of your contract, they should all show up here. But this should have a bunch of messages in there. It just doesn't have anything in there right now. And if you compose the message from here, you have to choose your contract number, or at least you have to type in your contract number. So if you knew it, you could go DIR, CPL, and then you'll see all these different contracts that's related to your company. And then you do the same thing, compose your message, send it off, and then it'll stay in the system. But yeah, that is the message center. So if you need assistance on your report or how to upload or how to use the system, you can always contact the VSR admins there. If not, you can, or if you have questions on your admin fees, you can go and contact the finance people. If you have questions on your contract, go through your contract manager. Okay. So, few last topics before we conclude. Administrative fees. So, administrative fees will be displayed within the application. As we start to close out reports, you'll notice that when you click on your contracts, you'll have links here under total fees. Obviously, I'm in a test system. I don't have administrative fees, but these will be links that you can click on, and they will actually be PDFs of your admin fee. Okay, and again, today as you're getting your admin fees, it's very limited in terms of what you are in terms of what you're getting in your email. It basically just says the month of blah 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 is done. Here's how much you owe us. There's no DIR letterhead. There's no PDF that goes along with it or whatever. And it doesn't break down what it kind of does, but breaking down your late fees and your credits. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible again, and you should have a copy of that PDF. Give me one moment. Let me pull up that PDF. One moment. I want to give y'all a sample of a okay. Reshare my screen. Okay, so this is what our administrative fee notifications will look like. This will be a PDF that's in your email, and that email will have essentially the exact same information that's going to show up on the PDF. So those that are on your contract, everybody that's on that contract will be on that email thread. So it's very obvious at your company level that the contract is, or at least the reporting period for that contract is done, and this is how much is owed, right? So again, you'll have DIR letterhead Tech4TX, that's the name of our platform. You'll have who your company is. You'll have the date and time of when we generated that administrative fee. You'll have high-level contract data. You'll have IDs that we have we need on our side. You'll know, and again, this is pointing to an old system or an old report, but you'll see this was for May of 2025. This was when that VSR was due, and when you're supposed to send that admin fee. And the total amount was here, $100.56. If you scroll down, you'll see how it was broken down. So on your VSR, you submitted, or at least in this example, it's saying, I submitted $13,410 in sales, of which I also had credits, of which it's just 2 pennies. But you know, if you submitted a lot of credits, you'll see a credit amount here. And then your administrative fees are depending on every single line item and every single admin fee percentage based on that, you know, that particular sale and that particular for your contract. Most of our contracts only have one admin fee, so it's not going to be that complicated. But that admin fee is calculated at a line by line item, and then it'll display here of like, okay, this contract had $13,000 in sales. The admin fee percentage could have been, let's say, 0.75. That could be the calculation of that, right? And if you have late fees on your contract, so if you did end up submitting it late, and you already had your late fee flag turned on in terms of having 3 late reports in a rolling 12-month period, you could get late fees of $100 per day after that due date, right? So this particular one didn't have any late fees, but that's where it would show, and you'll still see this is how we got to $100.56. So you had $100.58 in admin fees, and then you had 2 cents in credit. So it effectively reduced it by 2 cents, right? And for this particular one, I probably chose to have it just apply to a future admin fee. That is, for the most part, what most of our vendors want, and it will roll over even if you have admin fees that are less than the credits that you are getting. That credit will continue to apply in the future until it's used up. So down here you'll also get some contact information. You'll get those at DIR that will be the finance representative, which this will change, and then you'll have your contract manager, of which it's not, and it's very likely somebody else here at DIR. So this information will change depending on who your contract manager is or who the finance person is when this report went out. And then you'll get some more information of, you know, if you haven't signed up for EFT payments or ACH payments, this is how you can do that. And then some of the basic contract terms for your contract. So again, hopefully this PDF is a lot more official looking, and once you get this is when you can submit your payments to DIR. Again, nothing has changed in terms of if you submit your report, you know, you're not paying anything to DIR yet. You just have to wait until we close it so that you can see what the amount is due, right? Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show for the admin fee. The last thing, and again, I want to make it known, those that are listed on your contract is going to get that admin fee notification. So whoever you add here, they should be able to get this copy of this email, or you can forward it to them, whatever, or you can download it out of the system. So there's multiple ways you can get back to your admin fees. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about was surviving contracts. That's not going to affect a lot of people on this call. Actually, I'm going to do it surviving contracts, and I'm going to do ITSAC contracts. But for surviving contracts, if your contract is in a surviving state, you will be reporting in the new VSR system for your surviving contracts. Every single month, you'll go in there, submit it. You don't have any sales. I showed you how simple it was. You just click on that button, you're done. If you do have sales, you upload the report, you're good to go. And until that reporting period is over, or that survivability period is over, you'll continue to do so until that is complete. If it's not correct, or at least you need to make sure that it is correct, work with your contract manager, make sure that that information is accurate, and that if you're in the new system and you see a surviving contract and it doesn't look accurate, contact your contract manager or those at DIR, and we'll help you out with that. Okay. Let me open up an ITSAC contract template. I believe I have it here. One moment. Okay, so this is for our our ITSEC vendors. Okay, so if we go over to product types, this is what I was trying to say earlier, but all your product types and subtypes are going to be based on the levels and titles on ITSEC, right? So you have all of your titles of DevOps engineer, systems analyst, all that good stuff, and their title. After that, you'll have their NTE rate. So you'll know how much you're allowed to sell on that, right? You have your specialists, which does not have an NTE rate. They're denoted by these zeros here. But then you can, again, you can scroll down here, depending on what you're submitting, right? In your sales report, you'll type in something like services, mobile applications developer 2 under product type and subtype. And you can copy this and put it over just to make sure that it's all good to go. And then here's all your NTE rates as it comes along with it. Then you have one that's undefined title in case you are using the undefined title, but it should be pretty simple for our ITSEC vendors of how to submit your ITSEC sales. Okay. And that is all I wanted to show for ITSEC. And so we'll get into Q&A now. Again, if you have questions, put it in the Q&A. We'll read them out loud. We have an inbox dedicated to Tech4TX for this new application. So Tech4TX at dir.texas.gov. That is where you can send your emails and questions if you wanted, more information on the templates, all that good stuff. You can send emails there. Setting expectations from now through October 1st. We're going to send you a lot of correspondences of the registration email is going to come out tomorrow to all of you contract managers on these contracts. You will see something on your side. If you don't get it, let us know immediately, or at least after Friday. Our plan is to send it out by tomorrow, but it'll give you information on how to register your company. Understand that as you register people in that company, you're not going to have access to the vendor sales reporting portal because it's not ready to open up yet until October 1st. But once October 1st rolls around, the people that you create will be will have access into the portal. And as admins, you'll have to go in and do the same thing where you see the contract and you add in people. We may open that up earlier than October 1st. I haven't fully decided on that just yet, but we do want to make sure our vendors are prepared as much as possible to in the new system. Okay. Okay, let's get into some Q&As. I'm just going to read them as we go through questions that are relevant to this presentation. Okay. So the first question, I know you haven't talked about the uploading of reports yet, but I would like to know if a new template has been created. If so, does it round up to the nearest cent? This was a huge problem for us when submitting past reports. So our system, yes, has a rounding feature. It will round, I believe, to the second digit. So if it's like, if you type in something like 100.999, it will round up to the next penny. I'm gonna have to get back and make that abundantly clear. And I think it says it in our template as well, but that's just a long way of saying like there is a limit to how many digits you can go out to, and your admin fees and all that good stuff, it's all based on these rounded figures. So yes, there is a limit. You will understand what that limit is, and if you have questions on that, you can ping us in the chat. But I will look for what those amounts are, but I believe it's 2 digits out. My company has sales from customers back from 2011. Today, an email contact info is not required on the template. I will not have that information for most customers. Can we use NA in those fields? I would say as long as it's in an email format, I would do that. You can't put in NA because NA is not in an email format, but you could put in your own email or your company's email, something to where like we kind of understand if you don't have this information, great. We want you to provide the information as best as you can. And again, the reason why we're asking for contact information is in case we are auditing your sales or we need to go back to it, we need to know who you talk to at that customer, right? Like logically, you're talking to somebody at Texas Department of Information Resources or whoever that you're dealing with, we need to know if, how to contact these customers, right? Otherwise, we don't really have a whole lot of information. Next question, do you plan on notifying all users every time a new template version is released? Yes, we do. That will be going out in the notifications or the banners or mass email, like whatever we need to get it and make sure that you understand that there is a new template. We do not plan on changing the template all that often. If you notice, the current system doesn't have a lot of changes to the template either. So until we have some type of legislation that says, hey, we need to start gathering this data on our VSRs or something like that, yes, we may have changes on the template. But for the most part, what you'll see is what we're going to be releasing. Okay. Can we change our username to our email? The system will not remember username even when remember me is checked. So this system does not, I don't believe it logs in based on email. I think it is all based on usernames that's assigned by the system. So you will not be able to change your username to an email. That username is system generated. If you don't have the remember me function, then I advise that you write it down. Okay. On the screen it says reports are due 15th of every month, but on the call it was mentioned we have till the end of the month. Could you clarify? So your contract requirements is that you submit your report by the due date, right? And the due date is always the 15th of the month, unless that 15th is on a weekend or a holiday, or if we're having some issues on our side, we could advance that due date up. So in order to be compliant with contract, it's the 15th of the month. Technically, you have until the end of the month to get your report in, but then you may be incurring late fees, all that good stuff, right? So yes, you can submit it up till the last day of the month, but I would strongly advise that you look for that due date and make sure you get it in before the due date. Okay. Will confirmation emails be sent to submitters when VSRs are successfully submitted, accepted in the new system, similar to how they are now? No, you will only get the confirmation screen. We didn't think it was necessary to get an email out there. Again, considering the system will have, the system is the system of record. So if you go over to your sales report tab, you'll see like this is your acceptance of it, right? This is your proof that you got it in. So you'll get emails if you do that that upload where you have more than 50 rows, and you'll get an email notification about that. But we are not sending out an email every time you upload an accepted report. Okay. Please clarify the types of email notifications an assigned admin for a company will receive. As of now, you're going to get an email at the first of the month that says you are the contact that's assigned to contract 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever the contract number is. You have a report that's due. You can go in and log in and submit that. So you'll get an email for that. You'll get emails for reports that are coming up on the due date that haven't been submitted. You'll get reports for when it's late. You'll get an email for when we close the month, and you'll get your admin fee. So those are at least the email notifications that you'll see. At least from VSR. You could get more email notifications if you're in ePro or responding to procurements and stuff. So I can't guarantee you all the emails that you're getting. So but those are at least at the VSR level, that's what you're going to get. You're also going to get email notifications of like when credits were approved or when customers were approved or not approved, all that good stuff. If the fee is remitted late, does that also attract any penalties? For instance, if the admin fee is paid after the 25th of the month, technically your contract says that your payment is due by the 25th of the month when you receive your notification. So if we close it on the 4th, you have until the 25th of that month to submit your payments. So to stay in compliance with your contract, I would just recommend that you get those payments in. I will defer to our finance department about any fees, but as far as I'm concerned, that's what your contract says. For this question, can you please show the ITSAC sales reporting tab? We can get you a copy of that. But essentially the the ITSAC report, or at least this tab is going to be every single title and level for your ITSAC contract and what those NTE rates are. So this shouldn't seem different, but this is exactly what, this is very, very similar to what you're doing today. Okay. Will our template be specific to our contracts and the type of things that we sell? On the template now, I see that it shows the vendor selling a monitor. My company sells hours of time, so I'm not sure how to report that using this template. So yes, your template is going to be unique to the contract at that point in time. So that's why I was saying it's a good idea to generate that template, because it's not, if you have like 4 contracts, that one template is not going to work for all 4. Okay. If you're, yes, and you know, depending on the contract, if you're selling commodities or if you're selling hours and all that good stuff, you will use the same template, and we'll talk about that, or at least you can send an email to Tech4TX and we can talk through possibly that you're a telecom vendor that has like very specific fields for hours and minutes and all that good stuff. We're consolidating all of that, so once you get used to the new template, you'll see how you can submit things like hours, but that's essentially just a quantity. Okay. Can you, or how can we print the whole list of questions and answers? Several questions that our people might have already on this list, but I can't seem to be able to print the whole list of questions and answers. After this presentation, we're gonna not only post a webinar recording, or very likely it'll be this session, but we're gonna consolidate all the questions and answers and release it in an FAQ. So you'll be able to get access to that as well. So please stay on top of your emails, because that's where all this information will likely go. Next question, it sounds like we won't need to submit 2 reports anymore, one for surviving sales and one for sales under current ITSAC contract. Rather, they'll all go in one report, correct? No. If you have 2 contracts, you have 2 reports to submit. If you have a contract that's in surviving, you have a contract that is active, you'll submit 2 reports. So there's no one report that will have like all of your contract data on there. No, it's each contract. If you notice here, each contract shows up and each one of them has its own submission status. Okay. My contract allows for an annual uptick on maintenance and subscription renewals, which means we will have renewals which technically exceed the base pricing for these product categories. How do we handle that? I would suggest that is a contract management question that is very specific to your contract, so I do not have the answer to that particular question. Next question, will this information from the new VSR template Tech4TX still be accessible from the open data portal via the same steps as they are now? They will not be there exactly, but yes, we are planning on releasing this data into the open data portal. As we are advocates of the open data portal, we will have things like our customer list, and we will have our contracts, and we'll have our sales data. So yes, we do plan on updating this in the open data portal. It will be different because we have different fields of data that will be available. So you'll see on the open data portal once we start to publish things, we'll let our vendor community know these are the data sets that are out there. I do see a separate but related question about, is there I did see it earlier, but it was basically asking how would a reseller be able to get access to this data, like our customer data? Like if you don't want if you could technically create an account for your reseller on this contract or on your vendor, and then they would not only get access to these screens, as long as they're not in here, they wouldn't be able to submit reports, but they should be able to get over to the reports tab. Don't really have a plan on publishing it like on our DAR website, but again, the open data portal will have an instance of it. Will it be updated in real time? No. Will it be updated once a month? Yeah. So you could direct your resellers there if they want, or if they have access to the Appian portal and they have access to the VSR portal because they have a contract to report, or if they are an account, they should be able to get access to the same screens. Okay. I missed the zero sales report part. If you don't mind, can you repeat it, please? Sure. Super simple. You go to your contracts tab, you look for your contract that you want to submit a report for. You'll click on that and you'll go over to sales reports. You'll have a giant button here that says submit zero sales report. Click on that. You have a confirmation screen that's basically just saying, are you sure that you're submitting a zero sales report? Are you saying that you have zero sales for this contract in this reporting period? You click on yes or submit. That's it. That is your obligation is complete. You'll have a record here that says submitted zero sales and you're done. So no more downloading a blank template and uploading that blank template. Okay. Typically, how long until we see how much is owed to DIR? Very likely it'll be around the 5th of the month after you submitted your sales. So let's take July, right? So July reports are due throughout the month of August. So August 1st is when you can submit. August 15th is your due date. August 31st is the very last possible date to report an August report. After that period is done, then our side will be working on closing it. And typically in this timeline, September 5th is when you should get that close email. Again, this is a new system to y'all as much as it is to us. So we're going to be working behind the scenes to make sure everything is accurate so that we can close a month so that our vendors can see their admin fees. So it's going to be a new system. We're very excited to launch it. I really do hope that it makes a giant difference or giant quality of life improvement to all of our vendors and how you upload your reports. We're going to be working alongside you in the next few months and beyond to make sure that this is something that you understand and something that that is possible. And again, you know, we just want to ensure that you have the means to submit something that is simple. I don't want you to sit there for like 1 or 2 weeks with multiple people trying to get your reports in. You know, this will be a change. This will be different. But you know, my advice right now is to make sure your resellers know if they're sending your data in that old format, you want them to update it, or if you're just taking your resellers' data and you're manipulating it into this new format, and you know, like be proactive, start looking at, you know, once you get this registration email tomorrow, you can start registering people, making sure that they have access to the system, all that good stuff. You can take the templates that we have in the example, or you can reach out to us at Tech4TX and get a copy of a template that is very likely to be with your contract. And you can start mapping it if you want to map it to the old template. But for the most part, most of them do exist and they already exist in a different column. Problem is that we have 4 different templates and I don't know which ones you were using before. But you know, you'll start to see that, like, you know, we didn't make too many changes, but the changes we made were logical and hopefully better. So but yeah. Any other questions? I don't see anything. Again, you have a lot of oh, I see one. Who can help us with navigating, extracting VSR ITSAC information from the open data portal, post the cutover to the new system? So ITSAC information in the open data portal. I don't really know what that means because I don't think we post ITSAC data in the open data portal. So if you can follow up with your question, and we can help answer that. And if not, reach out to us or reach out to your contract manager and they should be able to help you out. Alrighty, well, thank you everybody for your time. We're again super excited with the system. October 1st is the date. Unless something were to drastically change, we're working very hard to make sure that October 1st is that cutover date. So if you have any questions, you have our contact information. This webinar, this recording will be available once we edit it. So you'll get a notification of that, and you'll get more emails in the future of things that we're implementing or things that we're trying to make changes to. In the current VSR portal, you would also have information there too. As we start to put some stuff out there, you'll have access to documentation in the old VSR portal. Will this recording be sent to everyone or just those who registered? I plan to send it to everybody. It's not just those that registered, because I did not get everybody that I expected on these contracts to to attend. But again, it's going to be posted to our YouTube channel as well. So, another question: did you cover the ePro functionality? I did not, because I am not over at ePro. So that will be covered by our CPO folks. Okay, well. Quick question: what is the YouTube channel? It is. We will send that out in as a follow up to this email when that is posted. But I believe it's just like Texas Department of Information Resources, something like that, in YouTube. But it is a channel that has a lot of our videos and a lot of our information that we push out as an agency. So if you don't know, it's a great resource. So. Alrighty, well, thank you again for everybody's time. Have a great morning. Thanks.